everybody? It's still E6.
Certainly
We're
is.
still Shacknews.
That's twice as many E's as E3, by the way, Blake.
Oh man, look, you thought that E3 had a lot of E's. Oh no. And it's like you don't even need to give us anything. Like it's the low price of free, and you get twice as many E's.
Yeah, like you get twice as many E's without having to deal with the LA Convention Center.
Or LA.
Put that on
not
the
Or
having to
LA
deal
at
with-
all.
Or LAX. Just,
Or LAX.
That's the big miss for me.
We're like the free bread at your favorite restaurant. Like it's just
We're like
delightful.
the day-old loaf at Jimmy John's.
Okay, fair.
Oh.
put the low price of free for twice as many E's on the box.
I guess you're right, though. The day-old loaf at Jimmy John's costs 25 cents still, so we're cheaper than that.
But yeah, we got this is our best games of mid-year panel. We're gonna be talking about the games that have really impressed us so far this year. Surprisingly, you can believe that. And we got about an hour to do it, so we got a lot of people here. So I think we can skip the intro and get right down to the nitty gritty, right, folks?
Sure.
All right. Well, I'm just, I'm gonna start in the top left corner of my screen here, which is the one and only the distinguished David L. Craddock. The L stands for probably loves Elden Ring.
Long reads, Blake. My middle name is legally long reads, sir.
But it was David Ladies Love Craddock.
Ladies love long reads, Craddock.
Yeah, there you go. Triple L.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's it. For me so far, it is Elden Ring. This is basically Dark Souls 4 meets Breath of the Wild, I would say. It solves some of the issues, not all of them, but some of the issues I think people had with Breath of the Wild. If you missed a lot of classic dungeons, Elden Ring has those in spade: big dungeons, small dungeons, medium dungeons. It has fast travel right out of the gate, which has been a thing since Dark Souls 2, but in this game, it's even more accessible than ever before because you can go anywhere you want, and if you find yourself overwhelmed in an area, just open your map, jump to any other bonfire or site of grace, they're called now, that you've rested at, and go somewhere else, which I think has made it a lot more palatable for members of the staff who are coming to these games for the first time. I love the horse, specifically double jumping. I think we can all agree that is probably the greatest game system innovation in the last 100 years.
I wouldn't just say the double jumping
video
horse.
games.
I wouldn't just say the double jumping horse. The horse combat too. Like on horse combat is excellent.
One thing we talked about in the Elden Ring panel, Asif, was that fighting dragons has been a fixture in these games since Demon Souls, and now when you're like across the field from a dragon, you're just charging at it full tilt. The dragon's roaring as you're coming in. It just makes that moment all the more epic. And because you're on a horse, you stand more of a chance going toe to clawed toe with one of these monsters. I'm really enjoying most everything about this game. I don't think it's as radical a reinvention of the formula within this franchise as Breath of the Wild was to Zelda, but I think it is, pun intended, a breath of fresh air. Even I was someone who, even when 3 came out, I was like, I like this, but it is getting kind of old. I'm really enjoying the open world experience, the open world twist on this game, and it's definitely the most fun I've had with new video games in 2022.
Nice.
Awesome.
I'm guessing there's other people on this panel who's probably also shared David's feelings on Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, absolutely. It's my first From Software game, and I had an absolutely great time with it. And for me, as a lover of open world games, it was a no-brainer because it sort of pulled back from the hand-holding that a lot of open world games do these days. And so I kind of felt like it really landed in the middle for me in terms of like loving open worlds and also wanting something slightly more challenging than some of the experiences we've had in recent years. And the discovery, like, I just absolutely love the discovery and the chase of loot and, like, what is that over there? And I think that that's not unique to Elden Ring, but it definitely did nail those aspects of it. So
Yeah, I think it was the last. I'm gonna ignore Demon's Souls remake because it's a remake, right? But
It really is, yeah.
the last Souls like that we really got that showed up very high on our top 10 list at the end of the year was Sekiro. Just to people who have been playing through Elden Ring more than I have, is Elden Ring easier or harder than Sekiro? And does the difficulty spike towards the end game of Elden Ring get harder than maybe some of the previous Souls games?
There
I think-
is a definite spike in difficulty near the end. There's kind of a gauntlet that you have to go through. And like
yeah,
like Sam's argument for that was that like if you really need to like level up your health and particularly vigor to take on that challenge. I've been close to the end game for a while now. I haven't had a chance to hit that gauntlet myself, but like yes, it takes a hike in the end to like really drag you to the
with an asterisk though, because keep in mind, like I hit a point where I was like, I would like to finish this, not because I don't like it, but because I want to play other games right now. And I was able to go through that gauntlet in 2 days because you can, if you're stuck, you can summon a co-op partner and you can get help. So it is challenging, but it's not challenging in a way of like for example, with Sekiro, if you talk to Sam, who isn't here, but he said this, and I'm sure someone will remember. He legitimately was like, "I don't know if I am good enough to do this," and he does
Yeah.
not have that issue with Elden Ring. So I would say Sekiro's probably harder in that regard.
They're just different, I think.
Yes.
They're just different, but it's harder. To your point, Asif, it's Sekiro is harder in a very specific way. It's much more limited.
Mhm.
It's not a traditional Souls like in that you can't choose everything about your character build. You're given a finite amount of gear, whereas Elden Ring you can kind of approach things however you want.
And you can
Sekiro
rune
is-
farm like Bill did, because like
Yeah.
he's leaving that part out of it. It was like Bill beating Elden Ring was like you beating Breath of the Wild, David. Your Link was so overpowered by the time you fought
I
Ganon.
just
It was like
smacked Ganon
hilarious.
around. Yeah,
You're just like whack, 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 and you're
I had
done.
like 30 heart containers or something.
yeah. Bill's build in Elden Ring reminded me of your build in Breath of the Wild, and just how OP it was. But Bill,
yeah.
Bill was grinding. Like dude was rune farming. like crazy.
I think I finished. I think I'm at like level 130 or something like that. And like I had 92 hours, and David just mentioned like he was around 120 or something, and yeah, I definitely went and got 40 to 50 levels inside of like 2 days once I unlocked a nice farming spot. So.
That's a thing too. Like there are several farming spots in this game where you don't need to be very high level to manage them. There's like a hill that's just full of like these ET looking dudes and they're just sleeping there, and some of them are active, but they also like do a cartwheel attack, and there's a cliff nearby and you can just direct them to cartwheel right off the cliff for 2,000 runes. And so
also
like,
keep in mind that Sam said that he beat the entire game with that longsword on our panel. So
Yep.
uh,
With like a starting weapon, yeah.
yeah,
But that just shows the flexibility of these games, which is to me core to the Souls-like formula. Like you can play this however you want. If you want to take your starting weapon from beginning to end, you can do that. And Denny claimed on the panel he's going to do a no-hit run, which I want to see that. So
Yeah.
Good luck with,
I'm gonna have to
good luck with
build
that.
my way up to that one. People are already running the strats, so I'll be paying attention.
Well, speaking of Denny, Denny, what is your game of the mid-year so far?
Well, I mean, so far, Elden Ring is definitely the one I'm going to choose in this scenario. I put in the most hours in this game, but also just having played all the others, I feel like it's doing enough new in different ways that I actually really enjoy. And it's been convenient to a certain extent. They made a lot of quality of life changes that actually really help make the experience better overall. Especially when I don't have necessarily all the time to come kind of hop back into a game. Having a map for one is a major upgrade. Having changes to how stamina works and stuff like that. Having a horse to ride around open worlds with, that kind of stuff definitely helps me when I might not be able to hit the game again for a week or so. And those things I think are what kind of take it over the next level for me so far. There's some cool games out there that are worth mentioning, of course, but For me, I don't see anything else as of right now beating Elden Ring in that top spot. But we'll see.
Anyone else want to sing the high praises of Elden Ring before we move on to other games?
Get it out of your system.
Donovan, do you want to profess your love for Elden Ring?
I liked it, but I have a different game that I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Nice.
well, that's the good news. You're up next, buddy. Donovan.
Yeah, I'll talk about a very recent game. It's not even out yet at the time we're recording this, but embargo's up. The Quarry, which is the newest game from Supermassive, who did Until Dawn and the Dark Pictures anthology, which is 3 games in, I believe, at this point. I love horror movies. I talk about them all the time on Pop Goes the Culture. I write about them on Cortex. And Supermassive pretty much makes interactive horror movies. In The Quarry, I think, is their best yet. It's a lot like Until Dawn, where you've got like young adult counselors like in the middle of nowhere, away from internet connection, running from malevolent forces. I don't want to get any spoilers and stuff because there's a lot of good twists there. But there's such a like love and admiration for horror movies in The Quarry. I mean, just the fact that they've got David Arquette in this game, Lynn Shay, who's in Insidious, Ted Raimi's in this thing, as well as a bunch of other really great actors. Kind of pushes it over the top for me. I think the performances are really strong. I think that a trope that horror movies and a lot of horror games fall into is that the characters are kind of two-dimensional. They're a lot of like nothing burgers. They're kind of just like flesh bags to be destroyed. But I think in The Quarry, the characters are actually pretty dynamic. They're all kind of cool. Like I found myself not wanting any of them to die. A lot of times when I play these games, I end up focusing on like 2 characters. I'm like, as long as these guys make it out, I'm good. But like bouncing between all the characters, I was like equally invested in all of them, which of course kind of elevated the stakes for me. I think there's some good twists in there. I think they leaned into a lot of the genre tropes, but they kind of turned them on their head in fun ways. I know that like when they did Until Dawn in 2015, it was a PlayStation exclusive. They kind of went off and started doing other things. They did like paranormal horror. They did a bunch of other kind of subgenres, and this is kind of like a return to their roots. Because this game almost could have been Until Dawn 2. They could have just set it in another area, and it would have been a direct sequel. And I think it definitely lives up to that original outing. And it's a game I cannot stop recommending people. As soon as the embargo was up, I was hitting up all my friends that I know love the stuff. Tell them to check it out when it hits this weekend. So
They brought so many good actors in for this one too.
Yeah.
Like David Arquette, Ted Raimi, Justice Smith. They have a lot of good people on this one.
Even Brenda's song popping up was funny for me. I joke when Pop Goes the Culture that I was like a Disney Channel kid growing up. She was on like Zack and Cody. Seeing her and this is really weird. They've got Ariel Winter, Miles Robbins. It's really like a banger cast that they put together. And they always get a lot of live action actors, and they always do the motion capture, so their faces are in the game. But this is probably the best group they've assembled yet.
And it's also decent timing. Like the new season of Stranger Things just came out, and we're like in between halves of like of season 4, and so like 80s horror vibe is going strong right now for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. And they even have a feature in this. I think it's like the deluxe version, or maybe it's a standard, but you can put on different visual filters. Like, so there's like an indie horror filter where there's like a saturation on it. You can go like classic black and white, and I think they have like you can throw the characters in these like bright colored 80s inspired outfits. So they definitely know what they're doing. And I think they hit it out of the park.
I think the thing that shocked me the most, though, when I was reading your review, is that you knew about Sleepaway Camp. Sleepaway Camp is kind of an obscure horror film, and you were saying that this game draws upon that film in particular, right?
Yeah, Sleepaway Camp, Friday the 13th. I mean, essentially, it's counselors after like the last day of summer camp. All the kids are gone, and they're supposed to be leaving, but some shit hits the fan, and they've got to stay one more night. And then it ends up being like a fight to survive. So yeah, it has those slasher vibes, a lot of creature feature vibes, which I thought was pretty sweet.
Nice, very cool. Well, I think that means TJ Denzer, you're up next. What is your game of the mid-year?
Man, like, ultimately, Elden Ring is probably the most top-to-bottom proficient thing I've seen, but I have a lot of games that I've really enjoyed. This first half of this year has been packed to the rafters. And I don't know. I think off the top of my head, the one that comes to mind the most is King of Fighters 15. This was like King of Fighters 14, I don't think was very good, and I'm not alone in thinking that.
Yeah.
It was not very visually appealing. The characters looked drab. They put sleeves on Terry Bogard. It was just a mess. And and
Leave Gate.
Terry Bogard in sleeves is wrong, unless he's wearing the Guru jacket. But this game was like a lot of hope was riding on this game. A lot of people were really wanting it to be like really awesome, and SNK really kicked ass with it. Like, it is visually like the best I've seen in a while. Like, Guilty Gear Strive is still like the top most beautiful 2.5D fighter I've seen, but like King of Fighters 15, it has its own style that's pretty dang good. The fire effects, like the effects of hitting, the flames, super moves, all that jazz. It looks great. The music is great. The characters are great. And I think one of the only issues I have with it so far is like they need to do a little bit more work on the online lobbies. But other than that, this game has been wonderful for not only just like how good it is on its own, but like it really has rekindled some big love in the community. Like, I don't know if you all know, but like King of Fighters is like the official fighting game of Central America. And like the Mexican community, a lot of other Latin American communities, just that's how you know that this game is good, because those folks have been eating this game up and loving it, and it's been huge at tournaments as well. Like, it was one of the highest registered games for EVO 2022 so far.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I feel like a lot of iterations of King of Fighters, it's just very turnkey to a lot of us. You know, it's like you hear, oh, new King of Fighters is coming out. You're like, oh, okay. You know, that happens just about every year. But yeah, people like you're definitely hearing more about this iteration of it in general.
For sure. Like, and it's fun watching people discover new tech in this game, because there's so much you can do with like the team-based character style that they've got going. Every time they release a new character or team, it's very interesting to see how the community adapts and like how the tier lists change.
Yeah. So is this going to be at EVO?
It is. Like I said, it's one of the most highly registered games for EVO 2022 so far.
So are you registering, TJ? Are you gonna?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Nice.
I'm already. I signed up for Strive and King of Fighters and Tekken 7.
Oh wow.
I thought you were
Yeah, I was
doing
gonna
MK
say,
also. Were you not doing Mortal Kombat?
Oh yes, and Mortal Kombat.
That's what I thought. Hey.
Yeah, I had a killer showing at Combo Breaker. There was a lot of hype for the game, especially top 8.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a thriving scene right now,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Wasn't Arslan Ash playing in that tournament?
Yes.
Like, he's the Tekken Pro, but he was. I think he made top 3 or something in King of Fighters.
King of Fighters is
really
another
good.
one of those games that like has a huge following in the Middle East. Like, there are a lot of players out there that people just don't know about, because we haven't had a lot of international tournaments where they could join in. And so we've got like Arslan Ash and other players from overseas that are just like coming out of the woodwork and showing their chops.
Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't be doing that if the game wasn't sound, well, at least from like a mechanic standpoint. Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a good nomination for this year, and it's surprising to not hear you talking about Guilty Gear for once. But then again, that came out last year. So.
Yeah, I'm going to be singing the praises of Guilty Gear all year long with Season 2 coming, but that one gets to take it back. I might talk about that for Most Improved Game later this year, depending on how things go.
Sure.
There is one other game that I want to talk about from a very different perspective, and that's a VR game. Cities VR. That is maybe the most relaxing VR game I have ever played. I never knew how good and how fun city management could feel when you're in a headset. But boy howdy, like, they really did a good job of adapting that game over to VR platforms. And It's like going back to Cities 1.0. You don't have the DLC. You can't do mods in it, and you only have like a 1 block square as opposed to like the multiple squares that you can do in the main game. But it's still like incredible to like be up on high, build your districting, your streets, your infrastructure, and then you can like take the camera down low to the streets, and you can like be on the sidewalk traveling through your city and watching your citizens just like the scope of it is so fun and so breathtaking.
Can you like click on a car and follow them throughout your whole city like you can in the main game?
You know, I haven't tried that, but I almost would be willing to bet you can, because you can still click on any of the buildings and see what's going on in them.
I used to just love doing that. Like I would like find this one guy, I would like name him or her, and I just like follow their whole day around my city. I love that aspect. Yeah, this is one of those things where I definitely want to try it out. I've played Cities on PC a bunch, and I've also played it on Switch a lot, and it got really panned on Switch for having frame rate issues and all these things, but honestly, like, who cares about frame rate in a city builder? You know, it's like it becomes minimal. But in VR, that kind of thing's super important. So it seems like they kind of shrunk down aspects of City Skylines to make it super comfortable in VR, which I think is important.
Yes. I really like the way they handle the controls too. Basically, you've got like your toolbox in your left hand, and then you've got your interactable setup in your right hand. So like every time you want to do something, you like look at your left hand, pull something out of it, and go put it on the map with your right hand. I think that's a good setup. I know some people were a little confused by it at first, but I really do think that like dedicating the entire toolbox of interaction and stats to one hand and then dedicating execution to the other hand is a good idea.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those are two good games to mention for this panel. Ozzy, what's your game? What are your games of the mid-year?
Well, I spent years looking forward to Tunic, and you know, every time I would see a trailer, every time I would go to like a preview event, I'd be like, wow, there's an indie developer out there that has like this love for Zelda, that they're tired of waiting for like a 2D Zelda type of thing. So they're like, oh, we're going to make our own. And I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, this is, if nothing else, this is going to be a really good Zelda clone. I was not prepared for what this was. It looks like you're getting into like a giant like homage to Link's Awakening. But then like you get into the exploration element, and then you get into like the lore aspect of it. And then you start facing off the enemies, which like have their own patterns and like get all defensive with you, and it's like, and they get so surprisingly challenging that they kill you over and over, and before you know it, you're thinking, hang on a sec, this is a Souls game. Like, I was not prepared for this. So I mean, as kind of like a baby's first Souls game, like I really enjoyed this, and the clever things that they do with the exploration element, like the fact that like there's no traditional like dialogue per se, like there's no voice acting, and anything that you find, it's in like the native language of the world. It's like it's not in English, and part of like the experience is you have to decipher what the hell's going on, and then you eventually discover that like the vintage instruction. First of all, the instruction manual is like designed like an old NES booklet, really cool stuff, and then you realize it's more than just an aesthetic thing. You use it to like solve puzzles. You use it for like clues as to what's going on. I thought that was really clever. And as like a hybrid of a Zelda and a Souls game, I love the hell out of Tunic, and I think it's one of the best games I've played this year.
Yeah.
It's also just deceptively cute.
It really is. It lures you in with its cuteness before it knocks you on your ass. Like when you get to the boss battles will rock you really hard to the point that you discover, hey, wait a minute, there's a no-fail mode in this. So you can actually turn the no-fail mode on in case like the combat gets a little too tough on you. But it doesn't like instantly beat the game for you, because there's still like, you still have to find out where you're going. You still have to like poke around and like solve all the puzzles, decipher the language, and uncover every secret that you can to understand what the story even is, because the story is not straightforward. There are little secrets as to what's behind everything, and you uncover that as you go, and just getting through that more and more, it makes it a hell of an experience, and not unlike anything I've played over the past several years. Like I really enjoyed this.
So it's a Soulsborne game, and it wasn't ruined by adding a mode where people couldn't fail.
If anything, if I had to fight
Shocking.
that one boss in the forest again, I would have torn my hair out.
Man, I'm just hoping From Software is listening to this panel.
They're not.
I know.
And they don't care. They don't care.
They've only sold
Oh,
12
boy,
million
can they.
copies of Elden Ring. They're in real trouble.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
man.
like, we got to
Could've sold
rethink our
24.
whole equation.
Could have sold 24, maybe. That's all I'm saying.
He doesn't have
Uh-huh.
Blake
But
is
I-
here asking for no fail mode in Elden Ring. Meanwhile, Miyazaki is probably plotting to put mimics back in the DLC.
Oh Jesus!
Good.
Yeah. Well, I think that brings us to the one and only Bill Lavoie.
Yeah. Obviously, we've already talked about Elden Ring, and that's very high up on my list, so I'm going to pass by that. And there's something that I think should be mentioned as someone who really loves open world games. I played Horizon Forbidden West earlier, and I reviewed that game, and I didn't like Horizon Zero Dawn that much. So I was very surprised that I absolutely love this game. I really don't know where it will fall in the grand scheme of things on Game of the Year, but it was probably visually the most breathtaking game that I've played this year, and it was on PS5. So I'm not even like, touting out like the PC game with like ultra graphics here. Like this was a console game that I think is probably the most beautiful that I've played. I thought that there, as a colorblind person, even though they need a little bit more accessibility there, I thought the use of color was actually really cool and really beautiful. And I absolutely love the variety and how each of the machines look, not only in like their physical form, but visually with the colors that they use to sort of like call out different parts of those machines. And it gives you one of the best payoffs in traversal that I can remember in any game recently. You can most certainly get a mount and like ride across the land, but nearing the probably 2/3 to 3/4 mark of the game, and this was shown in trailers, so it shouldn't be spoiling anything, but you actually can get the ability to fly. And boy, my favorite hours of that game, which is not necessarily a common thing for me, were probably the last 20 hours. And that was because I could fly around the map. I felt absolutely no reason to fast travel. It's like opening up the world all over again, because you're used to seeing it from the ground. You're used to like approaching things from, looking up at the tall trees, and now all of a sudden you're identifying things from, 100, 200 feet in the air. One of the only games where I was able to collect all the collectibles without any aids whatsoever, because I could just fly over top and sort of like, hey, that kind of looks like a spot that would be hiding one of these black boxes, or like that's an airplane wreck and I need to look there. It was just a really clever game, beautiful game. I really enjoyed the combat. Opens it up to playing whether you want to play stealth or in your face. You could do it either way. And surprisingly really enjoyed the core story, the main story. I thought it was really well done, and it hooked me into, I can't wait to see what they do next. So I think that game deserves a little shine in the first half of this year.
Dude, the creature designs. In
Also,
that
just
game are-
unfortunate timing of their release.
Yeah.
Like a week before Elden Ring, and then it was the first game was like a week before Breath of the Wild. So it's just been unfortunate timing. I think also games like that release in January tend to get forgotten by Game of the Year time. So it's good that you're bringing it up here. Obviously, this is just the first half of the year, and already people are kind of sleeping on it. That's a game that I think as PS5s hit the world, supplies get better. That's a game that people are still going to be picking up for years.
I think you're 100% right. Like when people buy PS5s, I think a big part of that is what does the PS5 have to offer, and they start looking into the exclusives, and this is going to be just another example of like a PS5 game that picks up steam over time.
That being said, the first game is on PC, right? So it's very likely that we will see this get ported to PC too, because Sony likes money now. So that's neat.
Yeah, and and it takes place in a lot of it is in San Francisco, right?
Yeah. Like, that's one thing I was going to bring up is I have always loved Horizon's blend of the natural world overtaking, like, the civilization that died before. And, like, how much you can see. Like, Blake, you brought it up when we were watching one of the gameplay reveals. Like, they actually had the ruination of the Golden Gate Bridge setting off the coast of one of the areas. And it was really interesting to just see the recognition of certain things in that.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Yeah, they had some of the iconic buildings too, like in downtown San Francisco, like just in wreckage. But it's also lavish. That's what's nice about it. Is it's like, yeah, the old society is gone, but in its place, it's like all of these lush greens and like the water effects in this game are
Definitely
also
going to be the
super noteworthy.
best water nominee for sure.
It also handles religion and tolerance around religion in an interesting way, because you're seeing how like society was, highly technological, and then all of a sudden you're talking about like reducing society back to tribes, and like a lot of the NPCs and characters in the game worship machines. Like they look at machines as gods, and then there's also a core group of people who are like, it's a machine, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like that whole, like, some people looking at other people's beliefs and like kind of looking at them like they're crazy, and they kind of go through some different paces when it comes to tolerance there, and like people becoming more accepting of other people's beliefs and things like that. And so I actually thought they handled that with a little bit of nuance and whatnot. And they do have fantastic dungeons, I might add. They're called cauldrons, but those are fantastic puzzle boss fight dungeons that I think people will really love. So
your character is kind of a religious icon too in the game, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
can be.
Aloy at this point in the game is like a hero to everybody who knows her. And I think that's a very interesting part of Horizon, is that you are like a recognized hero. You are this character that like defied the odds and saved the world once. And so like, as opposed to where like she was kind of an outcast in the first game, in this game she's like, for a lot of people, she's a messiah, and that is something that you actually feel I feel like that the actress who plays her does a great job of conveying that burden. She is like trying to carry the weight of the world all the time, and it
seems like there's times where she's like weirded out too by how people view her, and it like comes through in the voice acting. It's an interesting way to tell that story. Is like she feels strange at times about how people view her. I thought, I haven't played it, but I watched a lot of. I think I watched Donovan stream it. I watched a lot of Bill's gameplay, and that was one of the things I noticed early on about how they told the story. That's a very good nomination.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty good. But my nomination, awesome. Probably the most phenomenal, remarkable game to come out this year so far, I feel. And that's Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Like, everyone here on staff knows how much I love Borderlands.
Sure.
I mean, just for the folks at home, I've got my Vault Hunter and Claptrap tattoo right here. But I also love D&D. And Tiny Tina's Wonderlands takes a lot from D&D as well, in the way it presents the game. And we're talking like you get, not only do you have the skill trees from Borderlands, but you also have character stats that you build your core character up from as you progress through the game. And then on top of that, on top of all the like loot and shoot of a Borderlands game, they've added in a very D&D narrative with a great cast. You hear Andy Samberg smiling through all of his dialogue, but he's backed
They
up.
got Wanda Sykes there.
Yeah,
she's a delight. She's
Wanda
so
Sykes.
good in the game.
Wanda Sykes is fantastic in this game. And
so
Will
is Will
Arnett.
Yeah, Will Arnett is hilarious and kind of the perfect campy bad guy for this universe.
Yeah.
We've been playing this a lot together. I am not that big of a Borderlands fan. I get kind of bored with them. This is not the case for this game. I think the elements of D&D that you mentioned, the RPG elements, that overworld where you have like the
Yeah.
chibi character walking around, I love that. And also just Ashley Birch kills it in this, voicing Tiny Tina. Having Tiny Tina as your DM is hilarious. Like, just a lot of funny moments happen where you're in this area and you're in this setting, and it's almost like she forgot to like tell you the narrative. So like she's like, and then a bunch of ogres show up and they're just like pop up out of nowhere, and like she'll like you can
There
tell
was
like
there was one point where like something you think like something sad has happened, and then she's like, oh no, wait, fuck that, like
yeah,
pets live forever in Wonderlands, and
yeah.
like yeah, and like she's like, it was just sleeping and everyone's happy, just cute little moments like that.
And then there's times where the story gets out of her hands, and like this isn't a huge spoiler, but she may lose a character, and you see her like feel bad that things didn't turn out the way she thought they were going to. And that element of a dungeon master losing control is really cool. And they do a great job of telling the story.
Yeah,
through
It's
her
one of
DM.
the funniest games that I played this year, and I'm right at the end, I think. So I'll have credits on that very, very soon. But there's this one part that I just want to call out because I hear it every time I play with my crew, and it's Will Arnett, and he's going, "How did you even get this spell?" And I don't even know what spell it is, but I know Dusty, the guy that I play with, is casting a spell that he somehow got from Will Arnett's character, and I just every single time I stop and I'm just like, oh my god! Like,
he bought one of the special editions. That's one of the
okay.
Yeah, that's how you get that spell. It's something that you get in early on in the game. It's like a special legendary that they give you. And honestly, some of the weapons are so good. I mean, they're always good in Borderlands games, but like I have a shotgun that shoots like 5 like shots in like a mortar thing, and then wherever those land, a barrage of arrows just rains down from the sky. I have a gun like when it overheats and I have to reload it, I hit it 3 times, and every time I hit it, like 3 bats fly out and like seek out my enemies.
You have a dragon and a mushroom companion.
Yes, the companions. The companions are such a great touch because Mordecai was my go-to in the first Borderlands game, and he has like a bird companion that you can use as one of your special. But they've taken it a step further in Wonderlands, and now you just kind of, depending on what class you take, you might get some sort of animal companion to go along with it. And so I picked 2 classes with animal companions. So my main class, I get a wyvern that goes around breathing elemental attacks on people. And then my second class has a little mushroom dude that aggravates enemies. So like it kites enemies to itself, and then it just farts out a giant like poisonous gas cloud as well.
I was really addicted to the fact that one of the weapons that I used for quite a long time, I don't think I'm using it anymore, but like when I ran out of bullets, I just chucked it at people, and I kind of appreciate that energy. And also, this will come as a shock to my Elden Ring crew, but like I have a giant hammer. So like I throw my empty gun at people and I hit them with a hammer, and I was like, yeah, I'm good, we can play this.
Oh yeah, I got the Mjolnir attack as well, the Clawbringers, like where you throw your hammer and it does a bunch of like electrical damage, and then you can summon it back. And
I definitely have an assault rifle that I throw when I'm done, and I love that aspect. There's also a lot of, I know this is some of the stuff from Borderlands, but there's a lot of weapon diversity that you can really find a weapon that fits your character build that may not work with someone else's, and the idea of subclasses really changes things up. I like that you can like have weapons that actually draw energy from your opponents. There's like the balance of freezing and setting things on fire and like all these things. There's so much diversity in the weapons and the powers of the characters that like building a crew together is really fun. And like I know like when Blake picked his class, I intentionally went like a different way, so that I have a class where I can have 2 spells, and it's just awesome to have 2 magic spells. I went like super high on buffing my magic regen abilities, so I'm like very underpowered when it comes to like how much health I have, but my spells regen super ridiculously fast. And it's just
that's like a super D&D build too. Like that's kind of how my wizard is in my D&D campaign. It's like I'm super weak, but I'm like a glass cannon. Like I'm totally like that.
Exactly.
Kind of yeah.
I love that balance in that game. Like it is extremely well designed with respects to like the RPG elements.
It's the game that if somebody asked me, like if I had a friend who's like a casual gamer come up to me this year and be like, what should I play? I would hesitate to say like 2 of the games that I support the most, which would be Elden Ring or Horizon Forbidden West, given the size of the experience and like it's not for everybody. But I would have a lot of confidence that like, hey, this game's really funny, its art style's gorgeous, and it's not so giant that, you know, it's going to take you a year to beat it. Like I could easily tell people that we're just looking for like a fun game. Tiny Tina's is like, you should give that a shot.
And it has crossplay.
It absolutely does.
Yeah,
does not have cross progression, but it has crossplay.
Last things I want to mention before we move on: the traps. I love that they've added traps to it, and just how much it feels like playing a D&D campaign with your friends, just as much as it feels like playing a board game.
And yeah, the D20s that they hide across the level, like there's elements of it where it's like it has so many nods to traditional D&D. I love it, and it was strange for me because I bounce off of every Borderlands. Like every single one. This game I haven't bounced off of at all. Like it's the changes they made are super compelling. I'm running out of time, so I want to get to my game.
No, we're actually just about to get to you, Austin.
Okay. Sorry, I had my calendar tell me that I have an appointment in 8 minutes.
No problem.
I'm a bit of a Nintendo fan, right? Like I like my Nintendo Switch. I actually love my Switch OLED. If I were able to pick any game this year that may have come out in previous years, my game of the Midyear is Tetris Effect Connected. But since that's not allowed because that game came out, 4 years ago? I'm just saying, this thing, Tetris Effect Connected on a SWOLED in handheld is like crack rock to me. So I absolutely love that. But there's another game that came out on Switch this year. It's a first-party title. I guess second-party title because HAL's involved. It's called Kirby and the Forgotten Land. It is the most delightful Kirby game ever made. It's like if Kirby was starring in a Jerry Bruckheimer movie. Like, just the amount of action that you have, the cutscenes that you have, the story that's being told, which is barely a story, right? It's just Kirby's somewhere that he normally isn't. He's not on Planet Popstar. Like, it's odd. They don't really explain anything, but there's a bad guy. The bad guy does some stuff, and you have a friend that is kind of like.
I feel like you guys ragged on me for this for Bowser's Fury last year.
What are you talking about? Bowser's Fury was like 3rd on my list, Ozzy. Like I absolutely love Bowser's Fury, and this reminds me of Kirby being given a Mario Odyssey like game, but with the level design of Mario 3D World. Right, where it's slightly more linear than Mario Odyssey is, with its kind of open world nature, at least in the inside of the world. But just the amount of diversity of biomes, of things that you do. We got to talk about Big Mouth mode. Being able to turn into a Kirby, being able, I don't want to spoil the ending, but that last thing that you transform into is epic. That last scene is epic. It is not a hard game, right? Most people can beat it. They have it set up where you can play co-op with kids or whatever. But it is an insanely polished Nintendo game. And it's some of the best, I think Morgan mentioned it in their review, it's some of the best graphics we've ever seen on the Switch. And it runs amazingly. It's like why my Mario Maker levels suck. My Mario Maker levels suck because they're too hard and people get pissed off at clown cars or whatever. Kirby doesn't do that to you. There is not a moment in that game where you're like banging your head on the wall. It is pretty accessible, but at the same time, beautifully designed. Where there are these moments where you're flying through the air, the transitioning between mouthful mode and just regular Kirby is awesome. The amount of power-ups you have, the fact that you can level up power-ups. So like, yeah, you can be Kirby with the Link hat on and the Master Sword, right? But you can upgrade that power up twice. So by the end of it, you have this massive like Final Fantasy looking sword, right? Um, you haven't really had that in a Kirby game before, where there was like actual character progression. And then the other thing I really like, I can't remember what they're called, but they're these like side levels that you can.
Those little
They're
secret zone puzzle sort
Yeah.
of like challenge codes.
Some of them are puzzle challenges that require you to use mouthful mode. Some of them are just you have to fight enemies, right? Like there are just a gauntlet of enemies, and they're definitely harder than the mainline story, but they like go into the whole progression system. It's awesome. I absolutely love this game, and it's been slept on because it kind of came and went. I think it came out like what, a week or two after Elden Ring or something, so it was like kind of forgotten by some people, much like the Forgotten Land. But yeah, this game rules. Everyone should play it. It's outstanding.
I think it was about 2 months after. Actually, it was April.
Okay, it was April?
Elden Ring was.
No, it was in March. It was in March because I got it. I got it at the end of GDC. I bought.
Oh, okay.
I bought Kirby. It came out the like Friday that GDC.
Yeah, Elden Ring came out in February, and Kirby.
I must be thinking of something else from April.
Kirby came out a month after Elden Ring, March 25th.
Yeah.
March 25th. Okay.
Same day as Tiny Tina.
I like that the levels are like fun-sized candy bars, but like unlike a fun-sized candy bar, you actually are like satisfied afterwards. You know what I mean?
There's also secrets within each level, so like there is this replayability to it where you can just. I can't wait to see speedrunners play this because there's going to be like 100% run that's amazing to watch, and there's going to be this the powering through it as fast as you can run with glitches and stuff that I think will also be really cool. I think mouthful mode is going to open the world to all sorts of glitches. Mouthful mode and Cappy are very similar power-ups. Where Cappy, you take over a dinosaur in the first level of Odyssey. Kirby, just the amount of things you become, the way that mouthful mode informs the puzzle design of levels is awesome. So like I said, it's easy, but it's not like super easy. It's just that it's not as difficult, and I don't think Kirby games have ever been as difficult as Mario games. But it definitely falls in that category of an easier platformer. It is awesome, and like I said, one of the most polished games I've seen on Switch.
Fun and adorable, and I'm hoping that Kirby ends up in Mario Kart. Like they really need a Kirby in there.
Yeah.
Forgotten Land is like a full top to bottom game of Nintendo comfort food. It is like I play that game when I just want to chill, want to have a good time, want to feel good, not worry about like having to conquer something that's going to stress me out. That game is just top to bottom delightful. I love it. I haven't rolled credits on it yet, but like, God, I'm having such a good time with it. It makes me so happy.
Yeah, I was like, that game was just, I played all the way through it like in a week. Like it was just, I don't know. I was encapsulated by it. I gotta go. Greg's not here. Greg's game of the midyear is Evil Dead the game. He absolutely loves it. I think it's great. I love the camera of the monster perspective. They nailed that. Which is like huge, but yeah, I gotta go. I got an appointment.
Right. They're awesome.
Yeah.
We can talk about Evil Dead.
You guys should definitely talk about Evil Dead a little bit for Greg. But thanks for watching. I'm gonna go shoot some more content for E6 now.
All right, goodbye.
I've never been more jealous to be left out of a big team battle than the time that we did it on our big team battles for Shacknews.
Yep.
I loved watching y'all play. Like I was doing my assignments, but like I was watching y'all play that game, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so good. It's so hokey. It's so trashy. It's so jank, and it's so good.
They nailed that Evil Dead camp perfectly.
For sure.
Yeah, no, they really did. And like, just talking with the devs, and they had like a Evil Dead lore expert that like worked with them on it and everything. And there's so many like little nuance details to the world, the map, the characters. They approached it with reverence for the franchise, and it shows. it comes through in every aspect of the game. Even when you're losing as a team of 4 survivors, it's still like ridiculously hilariously fun. And I think that's one thing that really hasn't been noted, that the humor of the Evil Dead series kind of carries over in just like some of the insane moments that you end up in that game. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
it's
I had a good time with the game playing with you guys. You know, had a lot of fun playing that way. But also, this game had crossplay day one, which is a big deal for this type of game. Got all my friends together. It's actually one of the rare times I played this game with my sister because she suggested playing it with me. So me on PC and her on PS4, and we played with a couple of friends, and it was a lot of fun. The first time I've gotten to play something online with her in a while, so
so
brought
Evil
us together
Dead's
for that moment.
bringing families together, man. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
exactly. You know, the blood and guts. It was demons. It was a good time.
That's rad. Yeah, and yeah, it's a super fun game, and I'm not into like a lot of those
Asymmetrical multiplayer.
asymmetrical things. Like, yeah, I don't like to hide around and sneaky sneak. And it's too much tension, and I'm impatient. Like, if I'm playing a game, I want to be engaged with it, and like you're definitely engaged when you're.
I like the perk system in that game. They have a lot of different ways to build your character up, and I really like that you have a limited amount of points you can deploy and so many more perks than you have points. So like it really challenges you to like make your character build, and like if you're going to be like a tank, like a melee tank or a healer or a shooter. I really enjoy that stuff.
Yeah, the characters actually matter in the skill trees you can unlock. And they have some solid, solo mission stuff too to kind of get you in the game if you're not necessarily the person that wants to hop right online right away. You have an opportunity to kind of get into it a bit more beforehand with some of the solo stuff. So it really thought out every aspect of making an enjoyable experience, I feel like.
Absolutely, and definitely worth checking out if you haven't played it yet. But hey, last but not least, Morgan, how you doing, homie?
I'm currently down with the sickness, but I'm getting better slowly.
All right,
You feel better.
so this image on our screen is basically how you're feeling right now.
I wish how I want to be feeling. It's my cat Ipo.
All right. Well, your cat is adorable. But this is not the Shack Pets panel. I don't even know if we're doing one. But what's been your favorite game so far this year?
I have two, and both of them have already been mentioned, but they are Horizon Forbidden West and Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I guess I'll start with Horizon. It just takes everything from the first game and just makes it so much better. I really enjoyed the first game. It was one of my favorite games that came out that year. I think the story is really cool. I think it's really refreshing. I love exploring the world. It's so unique. Like, you can just kind of wander around, and it's just fun that way, too, by itself. But then with Forbidden West, the story really dials it up. I feel like you get to know Aloy a little better, at least from my perspective, by the way that she interacts with friends, by the way that she processes certain things. There's like a theme there of her like having to trust other people, which I thought was kind of cool and engaging and relatable. But it just kind of opened everything up, and then the creature design obviously is just fantastic. Like, it's so much more fun now to shoot these enemies because of the part mechanic, and like it gives you something to focus on, and something to strategize, and yeah, it's just really impressive game, gorgeous game, just a huge game, but a blast to play. And then with Kirby, I mean, that is just by far like one of my favorite Nintendo games that's come out in a while. It's the cutest game I've ever played. It just makes you so happy when you play it. The copy abilities and the mouthful mode and just how everything comes together and blends is so perfect to me. Like, everything fits together. Nothing is left out. Everything is thought about. And like, my only nitpick with that game was the mini games, but those are also super fun. And yeah, I like the fact too that Kirby in the Forgotten Land, it has that simpleness and like that approachability that Kirby games are known for, but then it also has like a harder mode that you can do, and then like this new game plus mode, which is even harder, especially with the boss battles. And so there's like a little something in there for everybody. So yeah, I really like those two games.
Yeah, I think that both of those, the environments in both of those games are really soothing. If that makes sense. Like,
Yes.
yeah, like especially Kirby. I'm just in the water levels right now myself, and it is just chillaxing to play.
I think
play
that's
through that stuff.
I like that you mentioned Aloy like learning to trust, because having gone through the entire experience, it was certainly something like there's more depth to Horizon Forbidden West from a story perspective than I think a lot of people realize, and a lot of that is thanks to the acting, which is interesting because, and I wanted to say this earlier, Blake, like we're talking about Tiny Tina's Wonderland and the wonderful job. If I'm not mistaken, Aloy and Tiny Tina are the same person, right?
Ashley Birch.
Yeah, Ashley Birch. So, yeah, I think that's those games are both very high up there. But if folks are looking for like something that's maybe surprisingly like has a little more depth than they think it does, Horizon Forbidden West's main story is pretty good and really well done from an acting perspective.
You know, I always look for like kind of an overall theme for games of the year. You know, like some years it's like, oh, everybody's got a crossbow this year, or everyone's got a grappling hook or something like that. Ashley Birch might be the
Connective tissue.
Yeah, the connective tissue, the thing that every game has got to have this year. You know,
put that on the box featuring Ashley Birch.
I thought you were gonna say best voice actor for the year, but I don't even know if she's the best voice actor in her game, because Will Arnett sounds pretty like he's doing a pretty great job in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands.
Yeah, you know, I feel like Ashley Birch is doing a really good Pee Wee Herman impression with Tiny Tina.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like she's taking something from Paul Rubin's iconic character and kind of put her own spin on it with Tiny Tina. Aloy is a much more serious role, though, I would imagine. So it's like that's some pretty great diversity right there, and two great games out at the same time. That's got to feel good for Birch.
Yeah, she does a really, really great job in Horizon with like the different emotional nuances as well. Obviously, I don't want to spoil anything, but like her meeting a certain other character kind of adds a whole new dynamic to it. A similar character to her, I guess. The best I can describe without spoiling it. And it's just really interesting to see her go from like, because she also has these really great, like Aloy has these like great witty comebacks, you know, and these great like sarcastic moments as well that really add to the character and help you kind of like she endears herself to you, but then there's also these like emotional moments as well where you can kind of relate to what she's going through. And I just like that kind of balance between, you know, it's not always super serious. Like there's some good funny moments, but then when it is serious, it does take it and it does it really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, I think we have come upon our hour. Oh my goodness. So many good games mentioned today. Really, it is quite. I think, it's quite the year for games. It seems like it would be. It felt light, but yeah. But these are all bangers. These are all absolute bangers, and I think it's a good year to be a gamer. And that's what this panel has sort of proven today. I would, of course. Oh, go ahead, Naz.
The funny thing is, we're recording this before Summer Game Fest stuff goes on. Like, we don't even know what's coming like second half of the year, but already this first half is better than like most years. Like this would be good enough for a full year, but like it's only been 6 months. It's amazing.
Look, I'm pretty sure we're getting. I know we're getting another Saints Row game this year, so I'm very excited for that. And I heard there's going to be at least one Earth Defense Force game coming out this year. Yeah. So I think there's more on the horizon. Not even the Forbidden West horizon, just the regular horizon. But I'm sure there's some stuff. There's some DLC coming for that, and a VR game for the PSVR 2, which I don't think is coming this year.
There's gonna be a whole slew of VR games coming, like second half of the year.
Yeah. Oh man. But with that, we'll probably have we'll have our Game of the Year deliberations for that second half of the year.
It's gonna be a hell of a time this year.
It is gonna be a hell of a time, and we hope that you had a hell of a time here today on our Shacknews Best Games of the Midyear panel. Stick around. We got a ton more content coming your way. We're just in the thick of E6 right now, people. So don't go anywhere. Keep it tuned here. And thank you, of course, to my wonderful and amazing crew, colleagues, Shacknews staff members. Y'all are crushing it. And yeah, stick around because we worked really hard on all this content. All right. Bye-bye.